So what's new in Team Developer 7.2? So the programming experience. We have a very exciting new feature in Team Developer 7.2, which is code analytics, which helps you find execution bottlenecks in your code. It creates a .trc file that includes code execution time per code line in milliseconds. And we have a new profiling viewer that lets you analyze your code. There are two levels of profiling. Level one is for message blocks and internal functions, and level two adds the SAL functions and internal functions. So you can basically profile everything if you like, and you can define exactly what to profile. There are several options how you can turn on code profiling. You can do that either through environment variables. You can do it through command line parameters, and each of them allows you to provide the profiling level and the profiling file name. Or you can enable everything through new SAL profile functions. So SAL profile start, SAL profile suspend, and so on, allow you to create profiling of your application code. And this is a screenshot here on the right side. I think that image pretty much explains everything. You can color highlight code that executes in more than n milliseconds. So you can say everything that takes more than 100 milliseconds to execute should be displayed in red. So you can quickly find the code that takes longer than expected to execute, and then analyze why that might be the case, how you could avoid things like that, maybe introduce threads or other things to avoid users having to wait longer periods of time. Then we have REST simplifications. The new REST wizard basically is a REST import wizard where you can provide a REST URL or a JSON response string, and out of that JSON, out of that response of the REST service or out of the REST string, we will provide this class that we'd like to generate, and you can switch on off members of that class. So you can say which one should be a part of the generated class that you want to have in your source code. Previously, you had to do the generation of these variables on your own, which was quite complex because you had to get many names exactly right, and also in the right order and right structuring. So this automates the the REST usage very much. Basically, you generate that APL here, and then you just have one call to call the REST service, and you can be sure that this then works without any errors and without you typing anything, having anything mistyped or so. So let me go to the next slide. So the wizard can fetch JSON from a URL or a JSON string, as I mentioned. You can turn off or on single elements of the to generate class, and there will then be an API file that you can include into your application to call or to consume those REST services. And this is really, really very, very helpful. Especially if you have complex returns, including arrays and UDVs and everything, then this has become really very easy now. So new APIs in Team Developer 7.2. We got to talk about Windows notifications. This is an API as well. This one is not available in TD Mobile. You can create Windows notifications. So this, what is the screenshot there on the right side you see is a Windows 10 notification. And you can also show notify icons in this toolbar icon area. So there's two options, SAL show notify icon and SAL show balloon notify. Actually, I think we changed the function names to be SAL notify show icon so that you have a more consistent one. So sorry about that here. But you can see what the concept is. And you can, there's a message that you can use, which is the event that is raised when a user clicks on the notification. So you can examine that and execute custom code when the user clicks on the notification. So you can let users know about things that have happened in the application context. For example, an order that has been processed by another department and now needs to be processed by a salesperson, whatever you like. Or you can notify people of a missed phone call, anything you like. To make database connections thread safe, we have introduced this SQL Connect X function. Before, SQL Connect would just use the SQL user, SQL password, and SQL database variables, and those could be modified anywhere. And for threads, that's not a good idea. So the new function SQL Connect X gets rid of these problems and creates a thread-safe database connection function for you. In the IDE, we now have UTF-8 file encoding optional. So some source code management systems work mostly on UTF-8 files, and if you have one of those, then you can switch your default file encoding to UTF-8 instead of the default UTF-16. A security feature is that the value of SQL password of that variable is encrypted in memory. So if you read the memory of an application at runtime, you won't be able to read any passwords. And we do have a Windows mini dump, which is a debug feature that can be used by OpenText support to find the root cause of an application crash, for example. For debugging, we do now have command line parameters. So in the application properties, you can set the command line parameters for an application, and that is as if you would launch that application, including those command line parameters, which is important for testing applications. So there are a number of UX enhancements in Team Developer 7.2 as well. We do have a new light gray Office 2016 theme. You can see it in that screenshot. This one looks a bit like the previous Office 2012 theme, the white theme, but offers more contrast. So users might find this one easier to read and work with than the plain white theme. We have several new grid APIs. We have start table set table flags for several new flags. Table flag virtual scroll, which is only valid against grid windows, which helps to improve performance for populating larger data sets. And you can, in the column chooser of the grid, you can have the sort order of the columns to be sorted by alphabetical instead of the column position. Then there's a new API to find out if a row is excluded by a filter that the user has set on the grid. You can find that out at runtime. And you can set the background color and foreground color, though the text color, for various grid states using grid back color set and get and grid text color set and get. There are two new tab APIs as well. You can find out if using tab is window activated, and that one returns whether the child window on the specified tab page is already activated. And there's a new function, tab attach window as child, assigns a child window created at runtime to the specified tab page, the child of the current tab container. So you see, we've added quite a number of new user interface functionalities that allow you to create more flexible applications and analyze better what is going on with your application and what settings the users have done with your objects. So the reporting fortifications in Team Developer 7.2. Report Builder, which is available as a standalone product as well, which is mostly being used by, or which is frequently being used by customers that want to modify reports that come with Team Developer applications. So basically, you as a software house sell a vertical application to a user, and this report and the reports you include, the end user wants to modify. They want to include maybe their company logo. They want to change fonts to apply to their corporate identity and things like that. And now we can do the same thing with the Report Designer product, because now Report Builder also contains the Report Designer product. So if you have TD Mobile applications or teamdeveloper.net applications that use Report Designer, and you are selling those to customers, and you want to have these customers modify these reports, then you can sell them Report Builder. So they will be able, with Report Builder, to not only modify Report Builder reports, but also Report Designer reports. So the coming things are new both in TD Mobile 2.3 and in Team Developer 7.2. So there are shared new APIs and reporting features. There is a new string encryption API. You can encrypt and decrypt a string using a key, which is using an AES-256-bit encryption. And you can basically encrypt and decrypt a string with that modern encryption API. And this one has been requested by many customers, which is a pretty powerful string search and replace feature using regular expressions. Now, regular expressions can be used to replace things in string. You can analyze strings, for example, to find matches for credit card numbers and then redact these credit card numbers. For example, this is a screenshot of a sample on the right side, where the regex is on the right \BA\W+, which searches this string here, and we are searching for the term antique and replacing it with the word modern. So that's a very simple search and replace. Below is a validation for an email address. You see that regex expression there is a little bit more complex, which allows to test a string and tell if that actually is a valid email address format. So, and I'm sure developers have many more ideas that they can use and make use of regular expressions and string search. So to accomplish that, there are 4 new functions in the TD Mobile and in Team Developer 7.2. There's SAL regex match, SAL regex search, SAL regex replace, and replace all. So these can be used to analyze your strings with regular expressions. So REST calls frequently have complex authentication involved. For example, if you want to do REST calls to Twitter or to Facebook, then you need to be able to use the OAuth authentication method or mechanisms. And to do that, we have implemented 2 new functions, SAL JSON serialize UDVX and SAL JSON deserialize UDVX, which now take headers and URL parameters that can be passed into these calls, and such can easily enable complex authentication in your REST calls. Another new function in TD Mobile 2.3 and Team Developer 7.2 is SAL string compress X. So this is now available for string compression with the binary data type, which we didn't have before. And string conversion for SAL binary to string. And there is a new flag encoding binary, which does not do any code page conversion, so the data won't get touched. And a new one for encoding base64. So this has been requested. I think that the first one, the encoding binary, is very important. So your screens, your string contents don't get touched by code page conversions. Okay, those have been the new APIs in Team Developer 7.2 and TD Mobile 2.3. Now let's look at the reporting fortifications. These reporting fortifications are part of the report designer, which is part of TD Mobile 2.3 and as well teamdeveloper.net 2.3. So we're not talking about report builder. This is the report designer product, which is in the .NET world only. You can now use watermarks for PDF reports. You can text and image watermarks. The content can be file-based or it can be coming through an input variable. And you can see there we have many formatting options. You can set an opacity, an orientation, a size. So many things that you can do with these watermarks and design the watermarks just as you need them on your report pages. For Report Designer, we also now have conditional formatting for the line, field, text, and picture objects. So you can provide a formula in the properties dialog, on the formula then we decide whether a certain format is being applied or not. So for example, if you want to display negative numbers in red and positive numbers in green, things like that. We also now have image scaling. So you can scale an image, you can size to fit an image and size for best fit. So the image handling in reports is much better. And you have text line wrapping, which is nice for text that is longer than the length of one data field that can now move over in multiple lines of text.
First, I'd like to show the new code profiler we've added with 7.2. As Martin mentioned, you can now turn on several profiling options on a running application. You can either do this using a SAL API, or you can also do this using some command line arguments or environment variables. Here I'll show you how to pass command line arguments to not only specify the profiling file to log to, but also the profiling level to turn on. So there's several profile levels you can set. But when you turn this on, you can run your application and maybe help diagnose why something might be starting up slowly, look at the call tree to analyze, where an application might be quitting. And so this is a useful feature to help debug applications in production. So I'm just going to start one of our demo applications with these options on by running the script. And so in this example, we might try and profile why it's taking this application so long to start up, and look at what are the more expensive functions which are being called. So that generated this trace file here. I can double click on it to open up the new trace viewer. And it basically just gives you a call stack and timing on all the various functions that were called. So you could see how at first, SAM app startup is called, then the SAM create on the MDI window. We come down and create all the other windows here, and you can see which functions are taking longer. So the MDI main has a create complete. That's creating a child window. So you could see that's taking up some time here, as well as the SAM create on the main window, which is, I believe, is doing some SQL calls to fetch grid data, and that would be taking up. So you can see quickly here what's taking the most time and help you optimize your application and find potentially hotspots where you're could improve your startup time or other functions in your application. So that's the new profile viewer. We also added several API functions to allow you to create Windows notifications. These are really easy to use to create notifications that either show here in the system tray, or also create what are called balloon notifications, which show up here in the Windows notification area. So if I run this sample, I can create a notify icon here, which shows up in the system tray. You can get a SAL event raised when the user clicks on that icon, or you can create what's called a balloon notification here, which will not only give the user a pop-up, but also show up in the notification tray here. And you can click on that and again get notified in Team Developer that the user interacted with that notification. And then we have functions to update an existing notification or delete that. And then you can display various built-in icons as well. So that's a nice feature that we added. We also added several regular expression API functions here. So you can do things like match a string against regular expression, you can search a string for regular expression, do replacements, and I'll go ahead and run this example. So you might want to do something like detecting a user's or social security numbers that are inside of a string and maybe perhaps redact that. So first of all, you could use search to find, so let me put in a regular expression to match against a social security number. So you can do a search. It'll give you the first index of the first social security number in this string. Of course, you can provide a start index, so you can iterate through and search for the regular expression in a large string. And you can do things like replacement. So if you wanted to say redact the social security numbers in the string, you can just do replace all, and it'll replace those social security numbers in that string. So the new salregex functions we've added are very helpful. We've also, another thing I'd like to show is the new REST import wizard. So if you have a complex REST API, in previous versions of Team Developer, you would have to create by hand a UDV structure that matches this structure, and that can be, take quite a bit of time. You have to go through, make sure you get all the names of these fields correct, and create all the sub UDVs, which represent all this data. So this is an example of an API that's returning country information. And so if you wanted to use this API in 7.2, you can use the new import wizard, the REST import wizard. And I'll just copy that URL here. You can provide either an endpoint URL, or you can just copy and paste in a JSON string. In this example, I'll go ahead and just use this URL. And what it will do is give you a grid that will allow you to do, select which fields you want to go ahead and import. You can also, for the fields which are UDVs, you have the ability to customize the class name. We'll try and give it just a, come up with a decent initial class name, but sometimes, especially for that root object, we have no field name. So I might just edit this and say class country data, and then I can provide a output, and it goes ahead and adds that library in here, so you can see the UDV structure it created. So this is the root object, which has instance variables for all of these fields, and you can see it handles child UDVs here as well. So it creates a currency class, which has its own fields, languages, etc. And then to use this UDV structure, it's really easy. You just call sal JSON deserialize UDV. You pass in that URL and a reference to your root class here. So I have an array here of country data, which will be populated from that REST call. I'm going to go and run that. And I'm just loading that UDV into a table window for display. So that's just a demonstration of how you can consume a REST API in mere minutes using the new REST import wizard.